Greetings from the Cape Town Conversation 2024. Welcome to the Digital Studio Agenda. And today what we'll be discussing is essentially the post-2030 agenda, crafting a new development paradigm. My name is Philani Mthembu. I'll be moderating this session. I'm joined by Olta Manjani, who's the Deputy Minister of Finance and Economy in Albania. I'm also joined by Bambang Pemadi Brojo Negro, who is a professor at the Institute for Economics and Social Research at the University of Indonesia. And I'm also joined by Ignacio Muñoz, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Ceres in Uruguay. So colleagues, today essentially, thinking about a new development paradigm. We know that we are not too far away from 2030, when the world should have eradicated extreme poverty. But we know that it has not been easy. And in fact, since the various crises that have impacted us, from the COVID-19 pandemic to the various wars that we see, we know that there has been backsliding, and countries are certainly not on course to actually achieve what they've set out to achieve by 2030. And with 2025 just around the corner, 5 years to go to 2030, the world doesn't have much time to achieve its objectives. However, it is important to already be thinking about a post-2030 agenda, how to build in greater resilience, inclusivity, and how to ensure that the development paradigms are indeed inclusive and able to be achieved. And so to tackle some of the key questions, I will start with Olta Manjani. And the question I have for you is, how can we dismantle global barriers to equitable access and opportunities, especially for marginalized communities?
Well, thank you for the question. It's a really important question nowadays because the efforts to dismantle global barriers to equitable access and opportunities should actually focus in giving every individual in the society the chance to succeed equally with the other less marginalized communities. Often the marginalized communities, they face systemic obstacles that are rooted in socioeconomic disparities, in cultural prejudice, in political exclusion or geographical limitations. And addressing all these issues actually involves in focusing in different barriers that are closely related to different sectors in the economy, such as education, healthcare, technology and digital innovation, employment. So basically, in a world where we are facing huge labor shortages, skills shortages, and skills mismatches, we really don't have the luxury and we cannot afford to leave anyone outside the labor market. So I think the policies of the government should actually focus in tailoring the right and specific policies in order to make the labor market inclusive and to have everyone contribute in the economic growth. And I think that these policies should focus first on education, on healthcare, on economic empowerment, and of course, what is cross-cutting through all of them is technology and innovation and how we use the latter in order to assist the farmer. I would first like to start with how to bridge these barriers in education. The first big need, I would say, is to bridge the educational gaps, of course, to invest in free, in quality education. And here there are very good examples that we can follow. For example, if we see the countries of Western Europe or countries in the European Union that have been consistently facing huge waves of immigration, the way that they make sure that these marginalized communities in the beginning, once they emigrate in a foreign country, is by tailoring specific programs that cater to their needs, such as linguistic programs, cultural programs, so that they can become and they can get integrated into the societies where they actually migrate. The other focus on the education, which I think is very important nowadays, is skills development. Acquiring a skill is making sure that you actually become more productive in the society. So at some point, it really doesn't matter how many degrees you have or what university did you go to. Sometimes, especially in these societies where people emigrate and they want to get integrated in the other societies, having a skill is something that really helps you to get integrated. And I would also like to mention a very good example in the European Union countries, because I also come from Europe, not from a European Union country member, but we're aspiring to integrate. That is programs that are tailor-made for young people. One of the biggest problems in Europe right now is the unemployment among young people. So we consider this as a marginalized community. It's basically young people aged from 15 to 29 who are neither in employment nor in education and training. In the country where I come from, the unemployment rate among this particular cohort is around 25%. So we have this policy program that is called Youth Guarantee, which basically offers every young person who registers as an unemployed job seeker an opportunity to register and get a specific offer of employment or acquiring a skill, going through a training course within a period of 4 months. So such programs that are tailor-made, that target specific let's say, vulnerable groups, are very good in producing results, and we have a lot of European countries who have actually implemented successfully such programs. So the whole idea is to tailor specific programs for the specific needs and to have a very clear target group whose needs you cater. The second and I think very important let's say, policies that we should address is also the economic empowerment. So how to create equitable economic systems and policies in place in order to ensure that we promote fair trade, ethical business practices, and of course, labor rights for the vulnerable populations. And for example, the governments should focus on unemployment benefits or employment promotion programs, which, as I said, identify and target specific groups, be them women, be them minorities, be them Roma or Egyptian communities, or depending on the countries, which could be called or identified as marginalized groups. One of these programs, for example, that we have in my country and that targets women gives subsidies. The government gives subsidies to the private sector for the employment of particular marginalized groups. And for the women, we have also identified the need to subsidize their childcare or to offer some transportation subsidy if their let's say the place where they live is more than 2 kilometers away from the job place. So the whole idea is to actually, as I said, tailor the programs for specific groups. Another important aspect is also the healthcare. We see that the most developed and prosperous countries actually have universal healthcare, which is also one way to make sure that we are more inclusive in our society. And what is most important, and as I said, it's cross-cutting, is technology and digital innovation. Studies suggest that 10% increase in internet penetration can lead to more than 1.4 percentage points increase in a country's GDP. So this goes to show that really, if we provide access to digital tools, particularly in regions that don't have access to traditional infrastructure, these can really make a difference. And we also have to make sure that we use and we leverage the technology to provide scalable solutions for education, healthcare, and job creation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And then let me just move on to yourself, Bambang. If you could look at, for instance, what strategies can strengthen economies against geopolitical, economic, and environmental shocks?
Yeah, I would say that the basic one would be the economy has to diversify. So diversification is really a key word. Why? Because if you look at the basic investment principle, many people are familiar with the term, don't put everything in one basket. And then COVID-19 gave us a very hard lesson that over-dependence on few economic sectors, over-dependent on few commodities or products will make the economy very vulnerable to any potential shocks. And clearly COVID-19 is a shock. I think you might be, remembering that some countries basically collapsed during COVID-19 because they were over-dependent, for example, to tourism. So when COVID-19 happens, no activities, no trips, no traveling, then basically the economy collapsing because there is no tourism activity that create economic activities. So that is one example. And of course, it also happens if country, for example, being exporter, but the export is too much reliant on very few commodities. And when something happens, for example, Indonesia export a lot of coal. And now everybody's talking about, sustainability, green economy. So of course, we have to be ready. Someday, we cannot export coal anymore. And we have to make sure that the economy will not collapse because we cannot export coal anymore. Same thing if we, let's say, import food material from other countries. For example, Indonesia imports wheat from both Russia and Ukraine. And then suddenly there was, war over there. And we cannot rely on the supply from those countries. So it means we have to diversify, looking for other countries that can also supply the wheat. So in general, diversification is the key. But the next question, what kind of diversification you have to do as an economy? Certainly in the era of climate change, in the era of sustainability, then your diversification strategy needs to be in line with the sustainability. So green transition, I think, is a must. So whenever you still rely on the fossil fuel or you rely on any products that's not sustainable friendly, then you start to need to do the transition, including the issue of energy transition. So in general, I think diversification has to be done in all aspects of economy, including maybe one last thing. If you too much relying on global supply chain, which is good, from economic perspective, but sometimes it can create some vulnerability. Then, at the same time, while you are maintaining the strong global supply chain, you also need to strengthen the local supply chain to make sure, or regional supply chain, to make sure that if something happens, then you are not, totally lost because of the geopolitical issues, environmental shock, economic shock that could happen anytime now.
No, excellent. I think these are definitely issues pertinent in all our various regions. And then just turning to you, Ignacio, how can we reform multilateral institutions to bridge development gaps, align private sector incentives with social grants, and support sustained growth in the global south?
That's a big question. Moreover, with the recent US election, I think that all that we really believe in the importance of multilateral institutions have to think about that. The headline, in my view, is that we need more focus on effectiveness and less in efficiency, with all that it means. Because I think, unfortunately, in the last year, multilateral institutions have focused on the reduction of the resource to have a goal or the best way to do that things in procedures, much more in results. And I think that the bridge that we need to close, the gap that we need to close, first of all, we need efficacy to do the things, and then see if it is the best way to do that and is the politically correct or the best way to do that. We really have a problem if not we are doing the things to have a result. And unfortunately, the reality told us that the results are not coming in the way that we are working with a multilateral institution. For this reason, I find a big opportunity. The US election opened a big discussion in the world with the multilateral systems and the needs to change the way that we try to solve the problems that are real. The big issue now is how to solve the problem, not find the best way to try to be solving this problem and the discussion that we have along this issue. That's the point that I want to raise, and I think that's a very big issue now in the world.
Yeah, no, excellent. No, this is very important, and I think, sort of looking at the areas that you've all addressed, I mean, these are certainly pertinent not only for regions of the global south, but they're equally important also in the global north. And so with that being said, colleagues, I'll allow you maybe just 30 seconds each, just to touch on, as we go into this Cape Town conversation, what are some of the key areas perhaps you would have wanted to address, didn't get an opportunity, for the Cape Town conversation of 2024, to take forward as we engage in these deliberations, especially in terms of advancing and crafting a post-2030 agenda. I'll start with yourself, Olta. Just 30 seconds. Any other areas?
I think I already made the point when I said that we live in a world where we face huge labor shortages and huge labor skills. So it is really in the benefit of everyone to include everyone in the labor market, not to leave anyone behind. As I said, we cannot afford to have anyone outside the labor market. So we have to make sure that we have in place inclusive policies where every individual in the society can give their own contribution to the economic development. So we have to get the best out of everyone, but also make sure that we have in place the right policies where they can give the best to the society.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And yourself, Bambang?
Yeah. For me, sustainable development goal is basically about the balance between economic sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. And I think this Cape Town conversation can fill the gap between the global north and global south, because, at least in my opinion, the global north already focus very much on environmental sustainability, but still less on economic and social sustainability, which is actually bigger issue in the global south.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And yourself, Ignacio?
I totally agree with both, and I'd like to add that a key point to ensure this reduction of global barrier is trade. Trade openness is in danger in the world, and with trade openness, with opportunity to sell the production of the global south all over the world, more of these challenges would be easy to solve rather than a closed world. That's my concern right now, and our main point to put on the table.
Excellent. No, thank you very much, colleagues. You have been with us today at the Cape Town Conversation, the Digital Studio Agenda, where we addressed essentially the post-2030 agenda, crafting a new development paradigm. And it became quite clear that in order to take this agenda forward, you do need to have tailored policies that address the various vulnerable groups. You also have to diversify your economies to build greater resilience, while at the same time ensuring open trade that works for development and more effective and efficient multilateral institutions. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been great moderating this session. Thank you, colleagues.